Good morning, everyone. I'm Councillor David Flagg, the Chairman of the full Licensing Committee, and I'd like to welcome you all this morning to this, the first web meeting in these troubled times that our country finds itself in at this present time. I'd like to begin, first of all, as usual, we need to elect a chairman. Can I have a proposal from the floor, please?
I propose Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. And all our members in favour? Councillor Dunlop? Not sure if we've got a connection with Councillor Dunlop there.
Hello, yes.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Councillor Dunlop. Thank you very much.
Sorry. I thought we were still unmuted.
First of all, I'd like to deal with housekeeping measures. Please note that this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee is being recorded by the Council for broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed efficiently, please could everyone present follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to by the chairman. State your name before you speak if you have not been introduced by name. Mute your microphone when you are not talking. After each party has made their representation, the chairman will ask each person in turn if they have any questions or comments. However, if at any point you would like to speak again, please type RTS, that is requested to speak, in the instant message conversation panel on the bottom left-hand side of your screen and click the arrow button to send. Please note this panel is visible to all parties. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are all turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you. Item 2 on this morning's agenda, apologies. Can I just check with the clerk that whether we've had any apologies for this meeting?
Thank you, Chairman. No apologies have been received.
Thank you, Nikki. Item 3, declarations of interest. Can I ask each subcommittee member in turn if they have any declarations of interest? Councillor Farquhar?
No declarations.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. Councillor Dunlop?
No, thank you, Chairman. None for me.
Thank you. Item 4 on this morning's agenda, the protocol for public speaking. Please note that the revised protocol has been circulated with the agenda, and our members just happy to note the inclusion of that on this morning's agenda. Nod. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, moving on then to item 5. Item 5, review of premises licence, the Talbot, 559 Wimborne Road, Bournemouth. I will now ask each participant to introduce themselves and state their role. I am Councillor Flagg, as stated earlier on, and I am the chairman for this morning's subcommittee meeting. Councillor Farquhar?
Good morning. I'm a member of the subcommittee.
Thank you. Councillor Dunlop?
Good morning. I'm Councillor Dunlop, member of the subcommittee.
Thank you. Councillor Kelsey? Councillor Kelsey?
Yep, sorry. Councillor Kelsey here. I am the reserve member, and as you have a full complement, I will still sit in listening on the meeting, but will take no part.
Thank you, Councillor Kelsey. Councillor Farr?
Hello, yes, Councillor Farr here. I'm just listening in, but not taking part also.
Thank you very much. Linda Cole? Linda? Linda Cole is our legal advisor to the subcommittee this morning. Not sure if you're still there, Linda. And Nicola Hooley, who's the Democratic Services Officer, who's acting as clerk this morning. Can I then ask for Tanya Jardim?
Good morning, Tanya Jardine here, Licensing Officer.
Thank you. Sergeant Gareth Gosling? Sergeant Gosling? I have a problem there with Sergeant Gosling for a minute. Sarah Rogers?
Yeah, Sarah Rogers, Senior Licensing Officer.
Thank you, Sarah. Mr. Richard Taylor?
Yes, good morning, Richard Taylor.
Good morning, Mr. Taylor.
Good morning.
And Sal Roblewski?
Good morning, I'm Sal Roblewski. I work on behalf of the landlord, the premises licence holder.
Thank you very much. In addition, I think we have a number of democratic officers providing technical support this morning, and we've already heard, as you say, from Mr. Jones. Before I run through the procedure, please may I check that all persons have been given notice of their intention to speak this morning and been identified, and any person who wishes to withdraw a representation or wishes not to speak this morning has been identified. Is everyone happy with that? As there are no comments, I will take this as correct. I will now explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking for the hearing as follows. The licensing officer will present the report. The applicant will make their application. Questions of the applicant by all parties, members of the committee / subcommittee, to go first. Responsible authorities and other persons will make their representations. Questions of the responsible authorities and other persons, members of the committee / subcommittee, to go first. All parties will be given an opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude. The subcommittee will deliberate in private with the legal advisor and clerk present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held, in accordance with the regulations. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. I will now ask all parties to confirm agreement on the proposed procedure or make representations. Sergeant Gosling, are you happy with that?
Sarah here, can I just speak? He sent me a message. He can't hear you and he can't speak.
Can I just confirm that you're okay, Sarah? You happy with that?
Yes, fine. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, happy with that procedure?
Yes, absolutely fine, thank you.
And Sal Roblewski, you happy with the procedure?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. Before we move on, I'm just a little concerned that we've lost Sergeant Gosling.
He can hear you. You can't hear him. That's the situation. He can't hear us. No, we can. He can.
He can hear us, but we can't hear him.
We can't hear him.
So is that a problem his end? Richard, can you assist at all? No.
Right, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Sergeant Gosling.
Excellent. I'm back.
Super.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you happy with the procedure that I just read out, Sergeant Gosling?
I am. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Finally, then, can I just remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information which has already been given in writing, but to expand on your written representations. All questions are to be asked through the chairman, and there will be no cross-examination of parties. Can I now ask the licensing officer to present the report, please? Sarah.
It's Tanya. Sorry.
Sorry, Tanya.
It's okay, no problem. So good morning. Application was made by Dorset Police for a review of the premises licence at the Talbot, 559 Wimborne Road, under Section 51 of the Licensing Act 2003, on the grounds that they believe the premises are not upholding the prevention of crime and disorder and public safety licensing objectives. The review application was lodged following incidents occurring as a result of mismanagement which have led to significant disorder. Dorset Police state they no longer have confidence in the DPS or premises licence holder, and I note that since the review application was lodged, application to vary the DPS has been received. Mr. Richard Taylor, acting on behalf of the licence holder, EI Group PLC, has initiated mediation with Dorset Police, and a copy of their mediated conditions have been agreed and circulated before this hearing. Members are reminded that any powers exercised by them must be necessary and appropriate for promotion of the licensing objectives and directed at the causes of concern which the application identifies, and once these have been established through this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Councillor Farquhar, do you have any questions for the officer?
Thank you, Chair. Not at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Dunlop, do you have any questions for the officer?
Yes, I just wanted to ask one question. I've looked through the mediated conditions, the way that we've expanded on some of the conditions that exist already. This is the only discussion we have on these conditions, is it? Can I just check? Or is Sarah going to be speaking as well? Sorry, I just wanted to confirm.
Thank you, Councillor Dunlop.
Yeah, all right, sorry. Am I directing my question at Tanya regarding the mediated conditions, Chairman? Is that the person to direct?
Are you able to answer that, Tanya?
Yes, I do have a question. I'm just confirming that they should be directed at Tanya. Is that correct?
Sorry, yes, what was the question?
Okay.
Whether Sarah will be speaking.
Sorry, okay. This is a delay here. Looking at the conditions, they seem to be more detailed and expanded on existing conditions. There's just more words to substantiate what was already there. Do you feel that these conditions would be effective to deal with those issues?
Those are the conditions that have been mediated between the police and the licence holder. The police have have applied for the review, and and I think those are the conditions that the police would be happy with. Perhaps there's a question that you can ask Dorset Police.
Okay, all right, that's fine. That's why I'm checking where I needed to direct my question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dunlop. Can I then ask the applicant to address the subcommittee then, please? Sergeant Gosling.
Good morning. So we have requested a review of this premises based upon our concerns following our interaction with them over a number of years, really. There have been, as there are in many licensed premises, lots of change throughout that time. There's been change in licensing officers, and certainly for myself over the last couple of years, this premises has featured fairly regularly, if you like, on our radar. So I'm not going to go into it in huge detail because most of it has been covered off on the original application for a review. And as has been detailed by Tanya, we have engaged, I think, very well with the representatives on behalf of the Talbot to try and seek a set of conditions that we feel would deal with our concerns. As has been pointed out by Councillor Dunlop, some of those conditions are essentially reworded. It's very, very difficult. The Licensing Act doesn't allow for set conditions to be used. However, we do draw upon our experience and that of other areas and other premises to come up with conditions that we feel can give the best guidance to the licensees and to ourselves as enforcement authorities as well. So they're the conditions that we've come up with. We feel that there are some new ones there that will make a significant difference in improving the safety and security at the premises and enable the license holder to uphold the objectives far better. Now, there is, of course, an element of trust with any mediated conditions. We take the intention of the license holder to make improvements. We take that at face value, and we do sincerely hope that there will be significant improvements delivered. We will continue to work with the premises beyond the decision that's made today, whatever that might be. But I do feel that as a really good step forward in the right direction, I think if the committee were to consider implementing these amended conditions, I think it would make a significant difference to the operation of the Talbot. I don't really have a great deal else to say, really. I'm going to keep it short because we've deliberately tried to work hard to make this document as comprehensive as possible. Couple that with the concerns that we've raised in the initial review itself, and I think you've got yourselves there a fairly comprehensive picture of where we are and where we see our concerns. I'm quite happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Sergeant Gosling. I have a question myself. First of all, how will you be monitoring these new conditions? Will you be stepping up monitoring of the premises because of the history, or you already mentioned that it's face value and you'll be looking to the premises managers to ensure that these conditions are adhered to, but just wondered if you will maybe stepping up your monitoring of the premises.
Absolutely. Thank you for raising that. I should have addressed that really. So as part of our stepped approach to engagement, we obviously do go towards, we escalate towards the review processes, which is where we found ourselves in relation to this premises. Now, simply because conditions are agreed, it doesn't mean that you immediately fall off that radar. So the Talbot will remain significantly lower down because of these conditions that we're quite confident will have an effect. They will drop down on that scale. I would expect to around the concern area, and hopefully it will quickly drop off further than that. But I can absolutely reassure the committee that we will maintain a good presence at the Talbot. The local neighbourhood policing team are fully engaged and support our approach to monitoring the activity at the Talbot, and the local inspector has been kept well informed of what we're doing today and how we're going to progress beyond today.
Thank you, Sergeant Gosling. Councillor Dunlop, did you have any questions at all for the Sergeant?
I did, thank you, Chairman. I just want to expand on the point I raised earlier, and that's that reading through the incidents that have happened over the years in this establishment, and there is what seems to have been as a distinct lack control of who's coming in and what they're doing when they're in the pub, which is obviously a common theme. And then it's a catalogue of incidents. And there also seems to be a theme relating to particular groups of individuals. Now, I'm in the next ward along, and the Talbot, certainly on the ground, I hear that the Talbot does have a bit of a reputation. So given that these conditions are perhaps more expanded on what's already existing, and it has taken up an inordinate amount of police time and tell, and I would perhaps like just more assurance on how these conditions are going to deal with those elements that have certainly been frequenting the pub.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity to develop or to expand on a couple of the conditions there that are, for me, the most pertinent. I think the first thing, if I can, if you like, go in on some of the most significant changes. The first changes I think that we need to comment on are in relation to the hours of licensable activity. So you'll see there towards the bottom of, or actually at the bottom of the document, that for each day the licensable activity across all 7 days of the week has been reduced by an hour. The thought being that that will reduce the amount of time that they, certainly into the risk time. We consider the post-midnight time at any premises to increase the risk. It starts becoming a late night venue. And to bring
Yeah,
it
and is
back
it just
to,
me that's losing Sergeant Gosling?
I can hear him.
I can hear him.
I can hear him.
Okay, just me.
Councillor Dunlop, you sort of drop out a little bit on occasion. I think we could still work out what it is you're saying, but you do drop out a little bit. Are you still there?
Yes, I am. Who are you talking to? Me?
Yes. Yeah, you're still there.
Sorry.
That's it. Okay, great.
Sorry.
So in relation to, the first thing there is in relation to the hours. That's quite a significant change. The other significant change there is in relation to a risk assessment around door supervision. And you'll see that there again towards the bottom of the document where it's under as a new condition. So that's asking the licensed premises or requiring the licensed premises, whoever's managing it at that time, to conduct a written risk assessment to determine whether it's appropriate to have door supervision. And again, that really passes that onus back to the license holder to make sure that they are carefully considering the offering that they're putting on and whether or not they need door supervision. Now, it goes without saying that if we continue to experience disorder and those risk assessments are either not adequate or they're not properly foreseeing those risks, then we would need to look again at working with the premises. That might be to make a requirement for door supervision, which we know is incredibly commercially difficult for premises. But if it becomes a necessity, then I'm sure that we would have those conversations if we needed to. Hopefully we don't. Another key condition there is that all drinks will be brought in from outside before 10 o'clock in the evening. And again, that's quite a key move, and something that I know Sarah Rogers was keen to achieve to really bring that risk of disorder down. Together with the introduction of plastics for outside areas. There were also a number of conditions on the schedule, the existing schedule, that are not enforceable, so they needed to be updated. And some of the conditions were also capable of being interpreted differently, so weren't terribly enforceable. So it's really key to bring them in line with what we consider to be enforceable conditions. So hopefully that will reassure you. I mean, are there any particular conditions that you have either a concern about or wish for me to elaborate on any further?
No. As I said, being a councillor nearby, it does have a bit of a reputation, and that's not an easy thing to overcome. And I really wanted, I guess, a more fuller explanation of how some of these conditions might overcome that, because it is about who you let into the pub.
It is. If I could just address that point, I think you're absolutely right. It does have a reputation in the area. When we speak to other premises, when we speak to local officers, it does have a reputation. I think there's no point hiding from that, and I'm glad you raised that as an issue. We have, I do pride myself on working well with licensees, because we are there to promote a safe and vibrant economy, and it is a key part of the economy. I think you're absolutely right. A lot of work has to be done to change the clientele, and I'll leave it to Mr. Taylor to explain perhaps how the premises intend to do that. But I think there is some work to be done. This would be the start of a journey, but I can absolutely rest assured that if these measures don't work, and we continue to receive feedback that it is unacceptable, and we still are experiencing concerns, then you can be assured that we will be back before you as and when is necessary, seeking a further review.
Thank you, Sergeant Goslin, and thank you, Councillor Dunlop, for your question.
Chairman, I haven't finished yet. I just wanted to ask one more question, because this is quite a pertinent point.
Please do.
Does Sergeant Gosling feel that the new staff are capable of running these premises and implementing these new conditions effectively?
That's the big question, isn't it? It is the big question. Yeah. So we do get asked that a lot, and indeed we're invited by licence holders frequently to give our views on whether or not the staff, the management, the DPS, anyone else running the premises is appropriate or not. Other than we're very restricted as far as the Licensing Act is concerned as to what restrictions we can make around people being not considered suitable, and that's purely in relation to any convictions with regards to when they become the DPS, any convictions. As far as the management that the EI group will put in place, we will work with whoever they put in. We will certainly, as we have done very recently, commented and given feedback to the licence holder and to Mr. Taylor in relation to some recent management of the premises, and I'm pleased to say that the EI group and Mr. Taylor acted swiftly on that, and we will continue to work with whoever's there and provide that feedback and keep that dialogue going, and that's all we can do, unfortunately.
Thank you, Sergeant Goslin. Did you have any further questions, Councillor Dunlop?
No, I'm finished now. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Can I then ask Councillor Farquhar, do you have any questions for Sergeant Gosling?
I do. Thank you very much, Chair. Sergeant Gosling, well, good to see you back after a fashion for a review. I've looked at interest with your original request for the review and the journey that the Talbot has been down. My concern is for public safety. The litany of incidents and excuses and failings to uphold the licensing objectives makes miserable reading. It really does. Where children are involved in a fight outside, where the DPS is not on the premises and gives misleading information to where they were at that particular moment in time. CCTV not functioning. It's just a litany of issues. And when I read this, my question for public safety was, does the Talbot actually add any value to the area? Now, I know you said that, you know, it's part of the local economy, etc. But I'm looking at this from the public safety perspective. I will be asking questions, obviously, of the license holder, but these conditions which I see that you've been set out with a license holder, and I look forward to hearing from the DPS, these appear to me to be the bare minimum that we would expect of any premises. And I'm looking forward to the license holder speaking, but Councillor Dunlop stole my thunder, is that we've had DPS after DPS offered up by the license holder. What confidence do you have in the current DPS, and can you confirm who that is going to be? And have you worked with them before?
So in relation to the current DPS, we have there is a new DPS, as Tanya's already alluded to. We haven't worked with them at all yet. Given the climate and the time in which changes have been made, the pub, I don't believe, has actually functioned with the new DPS in place. So we haven't worked with them as such yet, and we don't have a, if you like, a track record. And I always take track record with a pinch of salt, because people do move around, and we do make inquiries. And it's only when we get to know this person that we will make further inquiries and really make our assessment. And the proof will be in the pudding, if you like, as far as how well they perform at the Talbot, which is, without doubt, a challenging premises to operate. Now, in relation to the conditions that have been implemented, I can fully understand your concerns that this is the bare minimum. This is the bare minimum standard we would expect of all premises. However, the schedule of conditions that had previously been set out, I don't believe were adequate. And the set that we put out now is very comprehensive. There are restrictions in there that I believe will have an impact. Now, it remains to be seen what type of impact that will have. I'm particularly keen to see what the use of door staff will be, and I'm also keen to see how we will see a change in clientele, how we will potentially see a change in the offering that will be given at the Talbot in order to change and turn it round. There is, and I can fully understand where you're coming from, Councillor, as far as your level of concerns, because I share them, which is why we brought forward the review. But I'm going to the nth degree, really, as far as my engagement, which is what we're always seeking to do, and in trying to support premises. And I just, I mean, it's within your gift to take whichever action you feel appropriate. But this is an option for you, and that's really the best option that I can put forward to as an alternative to other measures such as revocation or suspension.
Thank you, Sergeant Gosling. Did you have any further questions, Councillor Farquhar, for the Sergeant?
No, thank you, Chair. Not off the Sergeant.
Thank you. Are there any other participants this morning have any questions for Sergeant Gosling at all?
Chair, Richard Taylor, solicitor for the applicant. I wonder if I could just ask the Sergeant just to clarify a couple of points which I believe are important.
Thank you.
Sergeant Gosling, good morning.
Good morning.
Just as far as the application is concerned, there are two serious breaches of conditions highlighted in the papers. One is an allegation that the premises traded without a DPS. for a period of about 6 hours. Could you just confirm for the committee that it's accepted now by the police that that breach didn't happen?
Yes, absolutely. So I can give the slight background to that. So it was during a visit to the premises. Myself, Sarah Rogers, and Louise Busfield, licensing officer, and the information that we got from the licensing authority indicated that the application for a new DPS had not been received until late into the evening. It was confirmed sometime later, sometime after we'd used that information in completing the review, that we received confirmation that indeed the application had been submitted and received by the licensing authority prior to that time.
Thank you very much indeed for that. And one more, there's a suggestion that the premises breached a condition with regard to glassware outside, because that's not the case either, is it? Because there was no minor variation as suggested in the police papers, and therefore no condition precluding glassware outside. It's only a small point, but I'm just trying to get to level the playing field a touch.
Yes, absolutely. So our understanding from it was a conversation that we'd had with, I'd have to look through the whole document now, but it was one of the senior management at the premises, that a minor variation would be submitted in respect of glassware outside. However, I've later discovered that that was never submitted. So therefore, it wasn't implemented onto the licence.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for those.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Thank you, Sergeant Gosling. Any further questions at all?
No, thank you, Chairman.
No, thank you. Right, can I then move to Sarah? Sarah, did you wish to address the committee at all?
Yes, if I could, please.
Thank you.
It was just to reiterate basically what Sergeant Gosling has said, and stress the concern that we as the licensing authority have going forward. Although there's been mediation between ourselves, the police and the licence holders, the licensing authority are satisfied with the conditions which have been offered, and thank all parties for their engagement in that. We must be mindful, however, of the fact that they may not solve all of the issues. The licensing authority, like the police, are totally satisfied that we've done everything possible to assist the licence holders. We've shown patience and understanding in keeping the premises open and ultimately safe. But it's now down to them to prove that this can be done, or I've no doubt we'll be back in this situation again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Did members have any questions for the officer at all?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dunlop. Councillor Farrar, any questions? No, thank you. In which case then, can I ask Mr. Taylor if you would be kind enough to address the committee, please? Mr. Taylor.
Yes. Good morning, members of the committee. Good morning from Yorkshire. It looks as though it's a lovely day down there. It's a lovely day up here. As far as these premises are concerned, it's always very, very unfortunate when review proceedings are issued. What happened upon the issue of review is we got in touch with the police very, very early on. We've worked hard with the police to agree some conditions, and we're very grateful, and we thank the police for working with us on that. You heard Sergeant Gosling say a moment ago that I took on board some criticism of the current DPS, and we acted on that immediately. We removed Mr. London, who you see referred to towards the end of the papers. The police indicated that they weren't happy with him, so we removed him. As far as the discussions that we've had with the police are concerned, the early indications were that the police wanted more pub hours because of the difficulties being later in the evening. And We agreed that very, very early on. We talked about the conditions and we incorporated the conditions that Sarah wanted as well, as far as outside drinking, glassware and things like that are concerned. But just, if I can just go back to the beginning here. So we have agreed matters with the police, but clearly there are issues in the review papers that I must deal with. There are allegations that conditions have been breached, and those are allegations perfectly understandably made, but it's now accepted that those breaches didn't happen. It's also accepted from this side of the table that the turnover in DPSs, if you like, has been far from ideal, really. And nobody wants any instability in a pub. Everybody wants a pub that trades with the same management for a long period of time. And that's what we're all striving for. And I'll come to it at the end. That's what we hope we will achieve by this. As far as EI are concerned, these premises are owned by EI. I don't know if you know EI. It's the largest pub company in the country. About 4,000 pubs when the review was issued. Since the review has been issued, we've been taken over by Stonegate. So there are now around 4,800 pubs. That takeover took place at the beginning of March. The vast majority of EI pubs are subject to lease and tenancy agreements through which the tenant operates his, her or its own business. We effectively stand in the position of the old brewery. The tenant pays the rent, we sell the beer, comes back to us if upon a change of tenancy. And we have lots and lots of pubs locally. Just looking at it, we've got the Shoulder of Mutton at West Howe, the Brankscombe Railway at Poole, the King Charles at Poole. All pubs that trade without, I understand, any difficulty at all. And the ideal is that when a long-term tenancy is in place, the tenant holds the premises licence, it's his, her or its own business, and they operate it as and how they can. It's only where there's no long-term tenancy in place that enterprise will hold the premises licence. And that's the position we're in at the Talbot. Now, the Talbot, as we've heard, is a difficult pub to operate. It's a difficult pub to make money in for a tenant, and tenants need considerable support. It's a very large pub. It therefore has large business rates, the utilities are high, and it's operated as an old-fashioned boozer, if you like. People have tried other concepts, and I'm afraid to say it just hasn't worked. People have tried increased food, gastro-pubbing it, increasing the prices. That, unfortunately, hasn't worked here. And we've been left, really, with a pub operating on a short-term basis for the last 18 months or so. People coming in, people trying their hand, and people effectively then saying, no, it's not for us anymore, indeed. And where we don't have a long-term tenant, Enterprise, or EI, sorry, it used to be called Enterprise, EI holds the premises licence so that it can react quickly if it has to, so that it can be involved with the licensing process. And you'll see that what it enables us to do is act. I've just said the police showed no confidence in Mr. London. We were able to get rid of him just like that. You'll see that after the incident in September 2019, Sal Rublewski tells the police that she'll remove the DPS. And she did it. Now, that's not something that we do lightly, because after all, this may be the person's home as well as their business that we're removing them from, but we will do it. And in my respectful submission, Sal Rublewski, who's party to this call, has acted entirely properly throughout. You've seen instances where she closed the pub because the CCTV was not working. She's always taken action alongside the police, and the working relationship is a good one. So we saw that there was an incident in February 19, and Mr. The operator then, Simon Maynard. It was very clear he lied to the police. So what did Sal do? Well, she got rid of him. She told the temporary tenant, not good enough, get rid of him, close the pub. Again, we saw it with Mr. London, not good enough. The pub closed. So here we are. We have now identified a new DPS. His name is Whitton, Ben Whitton. When I discussed this with Sergeant Gosling and PC Busfield, I identified him to them, sent them his CV, and very fairly they said, look, we can't take a judgment. If you think he's okay, you put him in. Now, this is a gentleman who's older. He's 45. An experienced operator. He's been with Whitbread, he's been with Southern Inns, and we have confidence that alongside the new conditions, that he will be able to operate the new conditions, and he will be able to operate them in such a fashion that the pub causes no difficulties at all. And part of that is the reduction in hours, and I think that's very, very important. It's not something we would agree to lightly, but Sergeant Gosling will confirm it's something that we suggested may be prudent in these circumstances. We also suggested closing the pub down for a period of time, and then events overtook us somewhat. Mr. Whitton has operated this pub for a while, well, over a weekend, and we hope, subject to what you decide today, that he'll be able to continue operating it moving forward. We're all pushing in the same direction here. We all want stability. We hope, we believe that we've now got the right man after a couple of wrong-uns, if you like. It has been difficult, but we do think moving forward that we've got the right people and the right conditions in place. I've talked for far too long. I'm very, very sorry. It's very odd not being able to see a bench of people in front of me and react. So I apologise if I've repeated myself. I'm here. I'm open for questions. Sal is on the call. She's the regional manager. She's been mentioned throughout. She's the one who's worked with the police and with Sarah over this period. And I know that she's confident that we've got the right man in the right place to operate this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Can I just say, a little pedantic if I may be, but you mentioned Mr. Maynard saying that it was February 2019, but the information that the police has provided is actually 2020 on the
yeah, absolutely right. Apologies for that. 22. Yes, it was February 20, and it looks like it was Mr. Maynard who yes, I mean he lied to the police. That's just not good enough. That's why he had to go, and he did.
Okay, thank you. Right, can I ask Councillor Dunlop, do you have any questions for Mr. Taylor at all?
I do, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
First of all, can Mr. Taylor explain the position of Sal? I know she's the area manager. Can you just explain what area she covers? How many pubs? I know that you have a lot of properties.
So Sal is the regional manager. I'll ask her to fill in on this after I've spoken, because she will be able to tell you what properties she covers. And I know she covers quite a bit of the southwest because she's been covering 2 regions. Her job, if you like, is twofold. Number one, it's to support the tenants who are in the pub. And number I've done 1 or 2. And number 2, her job is to ensure that the interests of enterprise are met. Sal, can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you just answer Councillor Dunlop's question about your patch and your role?
Yes.
Can I just come back to that? Sorry. I just, if you don't mind, I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to understand the relationship between EI and the regional manager. And the question I wanted to ask you was, when did you first become aware of the issue with the Talbot? When did the police first get in touch with you? How much contact has, I guess, head office, for want of a better phrase, had with the police over this property?
Well, from my point of view, I mean, I'm a hired gun. So I knew nothing about the Talbot until review proceedings were issued. But my job is to fight the review. As soon as the review proceedings were issued, I discussed matters with head office, I discussed matters with Sal, and I approached the police. I said to the police, look, it looks like there's the wrong people in here. We think hours could be reduced. With what do you think about closing it? What do you think about overhauling the conditions to make them enforceable and modern? So that was my input, if you like. Sal can answer her bit. Sorry, just pausing there. Sal is an employee of EI Group. So EI Group is the premises license holder. It's the landlord, if you like, and the tenant pays rent. In situations where we're the premises license holder, of course, we have much more responsibility. And so Sal's role is much more hands-on with the tenant who's operating it at the time. Sal, is that correct? And over to you.
Hi, yes. Hi, Councillor Dunlop. My job is, it's like Richard said, it's quite varied. So in a premises that's on a short-term agreement like the Talbot, we are probably a bit more heavily involved. Because obviously there's more risk with the premises licence being with us as well. And what we do want is all of our pubs on long-term agreements, really, because then they're more stable. So we offer pubs on the open market for a 5-year tenancy generally. And
just looking at the one for the Talbot now, actually on your website, and just how you normally operate.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any questions about that?
No, my question actually was about coming back to the area manager. You're covering quite a wide area and you're covering a lot of pubs. How wide is that area and how many pubs are you covering?
So on a permanent basis, Councillor Dunlop, I'm a senior regional manager, so I actually only have 17 pubs. That's my permanent role. And the reason for that is I support a number of other regional managers. Temporarily, I am covering a larger area, and it's just because we've lost a member of staff recently. So I'm temporarily looking after 30 pubs. My area is kind of south coast, so from say Portsmouth over to Poole usually, and then kind of just up the A34 a little bit as far as about Andover. But temporarily, I am looking after Plymouth and Cornwall as well.
Okay, Sal, sorry, may I call you Sal?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay, I'm going to be direct because how did you let it get like this? Because as I said earlier, this pub does have a reputation and it's not a great reputation. And if I'm going to be brutally honest, as I say, my ward is the next one along. And if I hypothetically was looking for a particular activity, the Talbot is where I might go. So it's not a new issue, and I get that you've struggled to put somebody in there permanently, but these issues relating to drugs, fights, have been going on for a long time. And how did you let it get so bad?
Our first contact with my first contact was probably with Sarah about 4 or 5 years ago, where we were in the sort of process of changing the publican that was on the long-term agreement then. So I put somebody in place who again was temporary, but she was there for about 12 months on a temporary basis. The reason that I never took her forward on a longer term basis was that I had concerns about her. So again, I started to look for somebody longer term. I then got a lady called Magdalena Crush, who was, from my point of view, I was seeing the right things happening. Sales are building, standards are good, but the police did raise some concerns and we addressed them. And the thing I would say is that the DPS changes we've made have sometimes been at the police's request and have also been, because we have concerns as well. The person that is the tenant at the pub at the moment, is an experienced tenant. They are employing a manager and they're doing it very much on a temporary basis for us. It isn't what we want, but genuinely we have struggled, but I have engaged with the police. I've done what they've asked. I've moved people on. We've done, if the police have wanted something temporarily in place, for example, there used to be a beer garden at the front of the toll, but we removed it because it was a concern, and the wrong sort of people, we were made aware that they were frequenting it, so we've removed it. So I do believe that we have acted with the police, we've engaged with the police. Our contact with them has been fairly frequent. I'd say less over the last probably 9 or 10 months. And then obviously the premises became a concern for them earlier again this year. Again, we moved along the person that, was believed to be of concern. And Mr. Maynard was a concern to me as well, because he was, he blatantly lied to the police, and then he lied to me and changed his stories. And I engaged with Louise Busfield on that, and we moved him on. So, we've worked quite hard, we really have. And I appreciate how it must look on paper, I do, because 20 months of incidents on a piece of paper does look terrible, but there have been some good actions within. There really have.
Do you believe that this gentleman is the man that can turn it around?
I think Ben's run a premises for me before in Wincanton in Somerset. So Ben is very experienced. He is an old gentleman. And I do think that Ben should be given a go. We put him in place. Obviously, we wanted to trade before we had to close, because we really did think Ben was the guy. He has run a problematic premises before. And I do think he can work with us and turn it around. And I've no doubt that he will adhere to the conditions, which has been the concern before, is the amount of pressure that we've had to apply to make sure those conditions are being adhered to. And I think he can do that with guidance and less sort of a 3-line whip.
And do you have the time, or is there someone to give that guidance? Because you've just told the committee that you're covering 2 areas. You normally only have 17 premises yourself, but you're now covering 2 areas. So it's going to require a lot of support and time from you or someone else. And then I can see, looking at your website, that providing support to your tenants is something that you value, but clearly that hasn't happened here. I don't whether you've had the time. Will you have it going forward?
When we've got a premises like this that is on a short-term agreement, we would normally, if there were no issues like this, we would normally be looking to visit the pub at least once a month. The Talbot, if you were to check my meeting logs and things, you would see that I'm probably there fortnightly at the moment, and I plan for that to continue.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I'm finished.
Thank you, Councillor Dunlop. Thank you, Sal. Councillor Farquhar, did you have any questions for Mr. Taylor at all?
I do, thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Taylor, I think I heard you mention that you were phoning in from Yorkshire. Is that the case? Is that where you're based?
Yes, I'm sitting in East Yorkshire.
Okay, that's splendid. I like these sub-licensing committees because they offer an opportunity for a frank exchange of the licensing authority's position on a paper basis, but it offers the subcommittee the opportunity to look at how the conditions can be varied to improve the situation, and also to speak. Excuse me a second. Sorry, interruption there. My hound requires some things. But it allows the opportunity for the subcommittee to offer some input as regards how it can be turned around on behalf of the local. Hang on just a second.
I thought that was my job, then I realised my microphone was off.
Unfortunately, one can't turn the dog off, can one?
Yeah. Sorry, one of the pearls are working from home. Up here, hey down. Okay. So losing the point of view. Yes, I like your language. Yeah. But I'd have some language of my own, and by that I mean that. You use language such as you refer to yourself as a hired gun. You refer to you're there to fight for the for what you term the boozer. I made an observation earlier on that I don't know what value this particular establishment offers to the local community, and my concerns for the public safety for having this establishment continuing to run as it has done. My question to you is, would the license holder consider actually having door staff on for longer, or should I say beyond to have written into the conditions that rather than a risk assessment on an event by event basis, but to have door staff on as a permanent as a permanent feature, simply because looking at the history in the review, looking at it from the licensing authority's perspective, looking at it from the police events, the incidents as they're described, the reoccurrence of the same clientele coming back and causing problems, the fact that the DPS is not the tenant, and that staffing is such that they are stretched, that they can't handle a pub of that size with incidents outside, inside, etc. It seems to me that the only way to turn this establishment around is to send a very clear message that the clientele that you're looking for have to fall into line for the premises to actually survive and continue. Because, to use some language of my own, the impression that I get here from the presentation so far is that this is the last chance saloon. Because if we come back for a review on this premises again, I honestly don't see what else can be done. So I'd like your view on whether or not door staff, perhaps on an initial basis, are a permanent feature to turn this establishment around, because the clientele seem to be the issue for the DPS and indeed for the person who actually holds the tenancy. That's the way that you take it. So that's my question.
And it's a very fair one, and absolutely spot on. When I first discussed this with the police, we talked about door staff conditions. As Sergeant Gosling said, door staff provision on a permanent basis for a pub is very expensive and can often be the difference between pubs succeeding and pubs not succeeding. The moment you add door staff into your profit and loss account or into your bottom line, it becomes very, very difficult. And it was because of that, and with the reduction in hours, we agreed with the police that permanent door staff written into the licence wasn't necessary, because we've put in the whole risk assessment condition and the conflict management training condition, so that you've got somebody trained within conflict management in there. Now, it's a difficult condition to have on your licence because the courses don't run very often, but we talked about it through. People using a pub is all down to good management and strong management. I often say in situations like this, if you provide poor premises which are poorly run, you end up trading to the lowest common denominator. I actually put it a bit more bluntly than that, but that's what you get. You provide quality, you get quality. You provide rubbish, you get rubbish, basically. And you're spot on. What we need to do is to ensure that I've lost everybody. Can everybody still see me?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. What we need to do is to ensure that the new standards are met. And the way we do that is by having that decent management, and the break will actually help. The fact that the closure has, or the premises have been closed and will be closed for a considerable period, will help a lot. As to the reopening, it may well be very prudent on Friday and Saturday nights to have some door staff provided for the first couple of weeks, nothing more, so that people do get the message. And moving forward, that would be something that would be covered by the risk assessment. As we reopen under the risk assessment, do we feel that this is prudent? Well, my advice would be, yeah, get them on. Enterprise will have to pay, EI can pay for it. And for the first couple of weeks, we would have them, we would show them, we would show the customers what will be tolerated and what won't be. I'm really sorry. I've lost everybody except Sarah and Councillor Flagg off my screen. I hope everybody else can still see me.
We
I
can,
can
yes.
hear you. Yes, I think everyone okay?
Yeah.
It shows 4 at once.
Okay.
Right. Well, I hope that was an answer to the question.
Thanks, Mr. Taylor. Did you have any further questions, Councillor Farquhar?
No, thank you, Chair. I appreciate Mr. Taylor offering that clarification as regards what the premises licence holder would be prepared to accept as the move us forward.
Okay, right. I think at this point then it might be an opportunity to sum up. Mr. Taylor, is there anything that you'd like to just add for the committee's benefit that you've not already mentioned with regards to the hearing this morning?
Well, just very, very briefly, if I could close by saying this. I think it was Councillor Dunlop who said, you know, you read these papers, it looks awful, and Sal said it as well, and it does. It does. It looks bad. There is at first reading a catalogue of breaches and instability caused by frequent management changes. What we know now is that there haven't been the breaches, but there has been that instability. What we need is to ensure that there is stability. There are 3 incidents of violence identified in the papers, and they could have all been dealt with had there been better management. We're all agreed that the pub needs good, strong, stable management. It's what absolutely everybody wants. And we are confident that with reduced hours and good management, these premises won't reappear in front of you. It was said by Councillor Farquhar a minute ago. Last Chance Saloon, absolutely accepted. If things don't go right moving forward, EI won't have a licence, because the only thing to do would be to revoke it. So the message that I will take back to EI is very much that this is the Last Chance Saloon. So what's to do? Well, under normal circumstances, I'd invite you to remove the DPS and impose the conditions that it is agreed with the police and with Sarah will promote the licensing objectives moving forward. Well, we have already removed the DPS, and we've worked with the police on that. So I'd invite you, please, to determine the review by imposing the agreed conditions, and let us prove in this Last Chance Saloon that this is the last drink we get, if you like, just to stretch that metaphor. So okay. Other than that, I'm very wary. I'm starting to repeat myself. I do get paid by the hour, so I can keep going if you want, but I don't think I can add anything more useful.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Sergeant Gosling, is there anything you wish to add at all before we adjourn the meeting?
I will only very briefly once again. Firstly, thank you for Democratic Services just for putting this on. I know that they've worked really hard to get this done, so thank you very much to them. But just finally, in relation to this matter, I'm really, really pleased from the questions and the clarity that's been sought from the committee that the concerns that we have been fully understood. This premises, I can assure you, will remain of concern to us going forward, whatever the decision the subcommittee make today. One of the things that we do see happen quite frequently, and I think it's an important time to go on record about it. One of the things that we see quite frequently from changes in management is that there is almost the view that there is a wipe the slate clean type approach, where it's, well, I wasn't aware, I've only just started. And whilst I think with Mr. Taylor taking the message back to the EI group, as he said he will, that will not be tolerated. That approach will not be tolerated. This is an ingrained problem within the premises that needs to be overcome. And I think the EI group with Sal and Richard will need to really draw upon all of their experience, knowledge, and time and effort, I think, to address the problem with the new DPS. And whilst I'm hopeful that the premises can be turned around, as has been assured to us by Richard and by Sal, it remains to be seen. So it is for you, the committee, to determine whether you wish to implement these changes or any other measure that you feel is appropriate. It remains to be seen as to whether it can pay off, but what we've sought to try and do in that document is to really demonstrate the value of good engagement and the value of trying to come to an agreement that is viable for the business to be able to operate, but most crucially gives us the best chance, and it is only the best chance because it's words. And as Councillor Farquhar said earlier, we can't be there all the time. There has to be an element of trust, and there has to be a reliance that we have to have on the licence holder. And I've said this before in previous hearings, that it is a privilege to hold that position as a licence holder, and we do trust them to uphold the conditions and the licensing objectives to keep the public safe. That hasn't happened up till now. I'm hoping with this framework, and it is only a framework, that they can achieve that. But really, it's at that point, I think I've made my point clear, and I'm glad that the concerns have been taken on board, and I've got nothing further to add.
Thank you, Sergeant Gosling. I will now conclude the hearing. At the end of this meeting, the subcommittee will adjourn in private with the legal advisor and the clerk to deliberate. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be provided within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held, in accordance with the regulations. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. Can I ask the legal advisor just to explain the right of appeal, please? Linda, are you there?
I am. Yes, there will be a right of appeal to any decision that the subcommittee make today. That decision, as the chair has already told you, will come to you in writing within 5 days. Once you've received the letter, it will set out how you can appeal, and that will be to the Dorset Magistrates Court. And any appeal that you may want to make to the decision that is made should be made within 21 days of receipt of that letter. Thank you.
Sarah here. I take it didn't want to sum up from me, but I'm quite happy with what the police had said. But if you wanted me to say anything further before you officially close.
I do beg your pardon, Sarah. Is there anything you wish to add?
Well, not really. I was reassured that there has been an acknowledgement of the amount of time that we have spent on these premises. I was looking at my notes while Sal was speaking, and my first meeting with her at the premises was in February 2016. So we have worked quite closely together and a multi-agency approach for a considerable amount of time. But moving forward, hopefully the conditions, if you agree for them to be imposed, will work. They do put more a better stance on things, because during our meetings we've discussed lots of action plans which haven't been enforceable and haven't always worked out. So this deals with those concerns as well. So as I think we're all aware, if those don't work and the premises revert back to the old ways, then clearly we'd have to go for another review of the licence. But thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and my apologies for not coming back to you.
Don't worry.
I will now adjourn the meeting for 15 minutes to enable participants for the next hearing to join the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Are you able to hear me? I'm not sure what happened then. I just lost Skype completely off of my laptop.
I can hear you. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
See you now.
Right. Okay, sorry about that. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to Mr. Meads. Item 6 on this morning's agenda, application for a full variation of premises licence, Bistro on the Beach, Solent Promenade, Southbourne, Bournemouth. Can I first of all just run through some housekeeping measures? Please note that this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee is being recorded by the Council for broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone present follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to by the Chairman. State your name before you speak if you have not been introduced by name. Mute your microphone when you are not talking. After each party has made their representation, the Chairman will ask each person in turn if they have any questions or comments. However, if at any point you would like to speak again, please type RTS, request to speak, in the instant message conversation panel on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. And click the arrow button to send. Please note this panel is visible to all parties. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you. So just to reconfirm, I'm Councillor Flagg, the elected chairman for this morning's subcommittee hearing. I'm also joined by Councillor Farquhar and Councillor Dunlop. Can I ask both Councillor Farquhar and Councillor Dunlop just to introduce yourselves, please?
Councillor Farquhar, subcommittee member.
Councillor Dunlop, subcommittee member.
And can I ask if Councillor Kelsey and Councillor Farr are still with us?
Yes, Chairman, Councillor Kelsey still listening in.
Yes, Councillor Farr listening in also. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next on to Linda, please.
Yes, it's Linda Cole, the legal advisor for the meeting.
And Nikki?
Thank you. Thank you, Nicola Hooley, Democratic Services Officer and clerking this meeting.
Thank you, Nikki. Can I also just check and make sure that we have Michelle Fletcher with us now?
Present. Michelle Fletcher, licensing.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Meads?
Hello there, yes, it's Ian Meads here from Bistro on the Beach.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Sergeant Gosling.
Sergeant Gosling, I'm also joined by Louise Busfield.
Thank you very much. Right, just want to run through this morning's procedure once more. Firstly, the licensing officer will present the report. The applicant will make their application. Questions of the applicant by all parties, members of the committee, subcommittee to go first. Responsible authorities and other persons will make their representations. Questions of the responsible authorities and other persons, members of the committee, subcommittee, once again to go first. All parties will be given the opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude. The subcommittee will deliberate in private with the legal advisor and clerk present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held, in accordance with the regulations. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. I will now ask parties just to confirm their agreement on that procedure. Sergeant Gosling, are you happy with that?
Yes. Perhaps it's an opportunity just to say we weren't terribly clear on today being the date for the full hearing, if you like, in relation to this matter. I don't know whether clarity can be given. We can't find any record of receiving the notification of a full hearing.
Okay.
Was this intended as a, if you like, an open and adjourn meeting, or are we intending to have the whole hearing?
Sergeant Goldwyn, if I could just get confirmation that those present are happy with the procedure, and then I can perhaps ask the licensing officer to help us out with that one. So could I just...
Yes, no problem. Thank you very much. I am clear on the procedure. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Meads?
Yes. Clear on the procedure.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And Michelle?
Yes, absolutely clear. Just to clarify, it's my understanding that this has already been to the committee in my absence and adjourned until today's date.
Yes, it's Linda Cole, the legal advisor. It was before the committee on the 17th of March, and it was opened then and adjourned to today's date.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. If I can move on then. So can we just confirm that all persons who have given notice of their intentions to speak have been identified? I think we've got Mr. Meads and Sergeant Goslin. Yes, thank you.
And Michelle Fletcher.
And Michelle. Right. Can I just remind everybody that all parties speaking not to repeat the information which they have already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions are to be asked through the chairman, and there will be no cross-examination of parties. And I would now ask the licensing officer to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flagg. This item before you today is to consider whether to grant the application to vary premises licence BH083711 for Bistro on the Beach of Solent Promenade, Southbourne. The application was submitted by Mr. Ian Meads on the 28th of January 2020. The application made is to increase the licensed area to include the existing takeaway building as attached to the premises, add off-sales for the supply of alcohol, identify a temporary bar location within the existing outside area, add conditions as previously agreed with both Dorset Police and Environmental Health, all in accordance with the current licensing schedule. This mirrors the previous application made in August of 2019 with the added advantage of agreed conditions. This application in 2019 was rejected by the licensing authority as the advert for the application didn't appear in the local newspaper within the prescribed timeframes. I have reviewed the history of Bistro on the Beach, which has had a license in place since 2005. There's a transfer and a couple of varied DPSs. Other than that, there is a minor variation that took place in March 2018, and this was to bring the licensable activities forward from 2100 hours in the evening to 1500 hours, and I believe alcohol was 10 a.m. in the morning at that point. There's no complaints recorded on the system. Due to the current circumstances and us not being in our usual locations, etc., I reviewed 7 other premises on the seafront, had a look at their conditions and off sale. So if you have any further questions, please ask. Members are asked today to decide whether to grant the application as made, refuse the variation application, or grant the application subject to further additional conditions being added. Thank you. Please don't hesitate if you've got any questions.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Do members have any questions? Councillor Dunlop?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dunlop. Councillor Farquhar?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question is this. You say that you've had the opportunity to review the premises licences for 7 other locations on the seafront that have off sales. What were your findings?
So I was mainly looking to see if they had conditions with regards to off sales or any security staff. And I looked at Harry Ramsden's, Dirty and Neptune, Vesuvios, Urban Reef, Beach House, West Beach. I think none of them have got, let me just verify from my notes, I got any security conditions. Most, and none of them, 2 of them have got conditions with regards to the off sales. One being that no glass is to be taken away from the premises, and the other being that it doesn't take place after 2300 hours. The one that had the most, the restrictions with their off sales was West Beach, and this restricts it to decking area that's on the beach adjacent to the premises. I've got times and things if you want that much information. But
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask a follow-up? So all 7 premises that you reviewed have off-sales licenses?
that's correct.
Thank you, Michelle. Right, moving on then. Can I ask Sergeant Gosling if he'd like to address the committee, please, or is it Louise going to take it forward this morning?
It'll be myself, Chair. I think firstly you'll have to accept our apologies. We hadn't received the notification of today being the formal hearing, but just to pick up one quick point there in relation to what Michelle has said. I think we have to always consider each premises on its own merit, and it's not a point that I've had to raise before, but I think it's very relevant that we just look at this particular premises, because each of those other premises will of course be subject to a number of conditions, and we're not here today to particularly discuss those premises because their conditions will be suited to what their offering is. It may well be that they're more food orientated. It may well be that their location lends itself better to what it is that they have. So I just ask you to just consider that and not necessarily take it as a given, because I think there are restrictions to all of those premises, as we would expect. In relation to this particular premises, you'll see that there, from the plans, that there is an area that is currently licensed to the outside of the premises, immediately adjacent to the building. The outside bar area can perfectly adequately deal with that. And the problem that we have, an increasingly large problem that we have within Dorset Police, is responding to reports of alcohol becoming a significant concern on our beaches. And it's, of course, absolutely important to understand that there are other premises that can do that. However, we find ourselves now in a position whereby we find if you like, a shift towards our beaches, which are amongst the best in the country, being places where they're not necessarily for just for enjoyment of family use. They are areas where people are gathering to consume and, believe it or not, overconsume alcohol. And we do strongly feel that introducing this provision into this area, whereby the applicant has been unable to demonstrate that there will be control measures that would suitably deal with our concerns, that essentially they will be able to sell alcohol from the premises straight out onto the beach and to beyond. And given the fact that it is such an important recreation area, we do feel that those risks are significant. And I think it is something that the committee need to consider. We're bringing it to the committee for you to really be aware, to understand, and as local councillors to determine whether or not this is how we want to see the future of our beaches. there is a significant safety issue with regards to, I mean, I'm no doctor, but we do have links with alcohol and sun and people not drinking enough water and that sort of stuff, and we know that the effects can be pretty extreme. Certainly, we're looking at I'm not even looking at the fact that we've got sort of 1 in 8 coastal deaths in the UK involves alcohol, and I do feel that having that.
Chairman, I'm very sorry to interrupt. I've just muted everybody just very briefly because we actually should be hearing from the applicant first. So it's just to make that clear.
So, sorry, Sergeant Gosling here. Am I continuing or am I paused for now?
Sergeant Gosling, have you much more to add to what you've already addressed the committee with?
Not a great deal more, no.
No, okay. I've clearly made a mistake, ladies and gentlemen, by asking Sergeant Gosling to speak first when I should have asked the applicant, which is Mr. Mead. So what I'll do is I'll ask Mr. Meads now to address the committee, and then after Mr. Meads has addressed the committee, we can have questions from Mr. Meads and questions to Mr. Meads and also to Sergeant Gosling at the same time. My apologies for that. I've just followed what I thought was the correct procedure. So can I therefore ask Mr. Meads if you'd like to address the committee, please, in support of your application for the variation to the licence? Mr. Meads.
You fucked it up, Black.
Mr. Meads.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Technology. Sorry?
Would you be kind enough to address the committee, please, in support of your application for the variation of the licence?
I don't know if you want me to raise the points that the gentleman just raised with regards to the issues, or whether you want me to go straight to the point of why we believe we should push this forward. I mean, ideally, at the moment, we have 22 tables inside, 16 tables outside, and for the majority of the year, we have no problems at all serving from the inside bar. However, obviously in the summer periods, due to the influx of people, we do struggle. There are queues and it is a bit inconvenient. Hence why we've looked at putting a temporary bar outside, which is just a tabletop bar, a pop-up bar. It's not a permanent fixture, and that would just help alleviate queues indoors. Speaking to Louise of the police, and I believe that she was more than happy with this idea of the bar area. And to be able to continue to serve the benches outside as well as inside. I think the issue that the police have raised was with regards to the off sales, and the off sales basically is, again, it's only during peak periods, so it's only during, I would say, the summertime periods, most weekends, where we can't accommodate enough people, and the odd person would like to come to the bar and order a drink. And we, at the moment, only have a license to serve if they have a table. So what we'd like to do is offer a facility that if they'd like to have the odd drink, then they could take that onto the beach in front of the actual bistro area. We wouldn't be looking at serving students. We wouldn't be looking at serving minors. Our drinks are £5 from a weak lager. And I think we all know that you can buy 4 cans of strong lager up the top of the hill from 3 different off licenses for a lot cheaper than that. So the majority of the things we were looking at is to try and service the regular people, which for our business is food led. And I would say the average age group is between 30 and 80. So it's just an add-on facility to be able to say to them they are able to take their drink onto the beach if they wish to purchase one, if we have no benches available. If we've got benches available, obviously we'll still encourage them to sit on benches and inside the restaurant. So it's just an extra facility to help us be able to give a better service to the local community, really. And again, we're on challenge 25. We take it very seriously, so we go for the highest level. And if we saw anybody intoxicated, all staff are trained not to serve them. There's managers present on every single shift all day, and we're only open till 9 o'clock in the evening. That's throughout the whole year, no matter what. So the bar outside, we would envisage probably closing around about 6, 7 o'clock anyway. We wouldn't be looking to have that open all evening because there's never been a need for it, due to the fact that there is not a congregation of people down on that area of the beach that time in the evening. So it's more of a daytime thing to do to alleviate a bit of the pressure, basically. And that's basically it in a nutshell. We'll serve them in polycarbonated glassware, which we do anyway. So we don't allow glasses outside the building, and we employ staff that do clearing already with the benches, and we would ask them to expand their area just to the beachfront as well. We did have this license agreed by all parties when we originally put the application forward, including the police, and then unfortunately we made an error with the advertisement in the Echo, so the council quite rightly withdrew the application and declined it for us. We then took a temporary events license in the summer for the bank holiday weekend, which again all parties including the police agreed to, and that was proved to be very successful. Regular customers are very happy that we gave that extra add-on service, and again, like I say, the majority of people have left that area of the beach by 6, 7 o'clock anyway. So it was a case of we only had the bar open until sort of 6, 7 o'clock, and then we continued to serve from inside anyway. There wasn't anybody sat on the beach, so we didn't actually do any off sales past this time either. And I think that's basically it in a nutshell. I don't know if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Meads. Do members have any questions? Councillor Dunlop.
I don't, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do have a few questions of Mr. Meads. Just in your statement there, you ran through the hours which are different to your licensing hours. You said that you closed at 9 each evening. Which is it? Because your licensing hours are far beyond 9 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, basically what it was is when the license was put into place, it gives us a facility to, if we do extra functions. So during the winter season, we actually close at 4 o'clock stroke 5 o'clock, and that increases June, July and August till 9 o'clock at the latest. However, there are odd events that we have. We have tribute bands, we have private parties. So that's why the license was extended to midnight. But on the whole, we close at 9 o'clock in the evening, and that's summer period as well, unless we've got a private party or a function.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Meads, for that answer. How many staff do you have on a standard evening, and does it vary in different days of the week?
Yeah, I mean, it varies. I mean, obviously, out of season, we have 3 to 5 staff during the day. At the moment, during the summer, you can look 12 to 15 staff in total, depending on which day, obviously. But we staff up accordingly to what we see fit with regards to the weather. So we tend to do it on a weekly basis. So if we do have the rare freak heat wave, then we'll increase the numbers to 20. If not, we keep them down to sort of 12 people on a busy shift.
And so, if I may, Chair, just I can see that there's no security in this particular case. My question is this: Do any of you have any experience of off sales from that?
Yeah.
Because I didn't quite understand. You said you have people come in, and you have a license to serve where there's a bench, either outside or a table inside. But if there's not a bench or a table available, then do you serve them at the bar? I mean, how does it actually work at the moment?
The current license states that we can only serve people if they have an allocated table inside or outside. So they will come into the bar area indoors, they will tell us their table number outside, and we will serve them alcohol or any food, drink for outside tables. Inside we do table service, so it's not an issue because we've got more time and We've got CCTV that we put in since this original application. So there's 7 cameras in the building, as well as the council camera outside, which spans across the whole of our bench area. But we don't officially have any security guards at present. We've never really felt the need for it, and thankfully we have never had any that sort of people down that end of Southbourne Beach.
So just in confirmation, you don't have any experience and you don't actually provide off sales at the moment?
Not at present at the Bistro, no. I've done it in previous establishments. So.
Thank you, Chair. No further questions.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. Mr. Meads, you mentioned in your presentation that you operated on under a 10 last year. That 10, was that purely for just off sales? And can you confirm whether or not I've actually got your proposed layout drawing, which accompanied the application, and it shows the proposed bar adjacent to the entrance. Can I ask that did you work under that scheme under the 10?
Yes, I mean, as you approach the Bistro, there are 2 benches to the right-hand side before the fire door at the moment. And that's where we put a temporary bar. It was just it was one top bar with 1 pump for lager, 1 pump for Prosecco, 1 pump for wine, and we did soft drinks. That was it. And what we did is they serviced the outside benches, and some people came off the beach and bought off sales for it. But again, it was served in polycarbonated glasses. There was no glassware out on the beach, so the wine was served in polycarbonate glass as well. And yeah, so we'd proposed to put this bar up temporarily there, move the 2 benches out of the way, so it's easily accessible from the building. It's covered by CCTV, and like I say, it's a very minimal bar just to alleviate problems indoors, basically.
Thank you, Mr. Meads. Any further questions for Mr. Meads at all, members? No.
If I may, Chair. Sorry, I know that the applicant, sorry, the responsible body had a concern as regards proxy sales. You've not in your presentation sort of covered that particular aspect. Are you aware of that, Mr. Meads?
Is this with regards to the takeaway?
Indeed.
Yeah. I mean, the takeaway, we were looking at a facility where we could serve, again, polycarbonated lagers in bottles. And again, there's no plans to put any other pumps or anything else in there at the moment. It was, again, just an option of an extra off sale of enclosed cans of cider or lager, basically. However, if we got granted the license, we could look at what facilities we could do there. Also, with the coronavirus being the way it is at the moment, the talk is that potentially the restaurants may well be closed. So if we are allowed to open our takeaway facility with obviously the 2 metre distance, then we could serve a form of alcohol from the takeaway outlet if we got given this license, whereby the restaurant may well be closed. I mean, we don't know that. We're just assuming what could and couldn't happen. But it'll give us that extra opportunity to be able to serve ice cream, soft drinks, and smaller quantities of alcohol from the takeaway outlet.
So, sorry, Chair, if I may, that doesn't answer my question. My question was that proxy sales, and I'm actually referring to the proxy sales to people that are underage, which is obviously one of the licensing objectives, is that we are to protect not only public safety but also children from harm. So my question specifically is, what in your application would prevent, in the form of off sales, proxy sales on behalf of children?
I mean, at the moment we're on Challenge 25, so we take it very, very seriously. I mean, I'm sure the supermarkets up the road are the same, and so we would monitor, because obviously we deal face to face with any of the public that come to the takeaway outlet, and we would take it very seriously as to who we'd sell alcohol to. We did this in the temporary events part, and to be honest, we didn't serve a great deal from takeaway. The majority of people came from the outside bar, which is what we'd rather encourage people to come to, but it was the extra facility to be able to do that from the takeaway outlet. The same way as a supermarket, they will obviously ID people and do the best of their ability to make sure that minors aren't purchasing any alcohol, and that's exactly the same format that we'd follow.
Thank you, Chair. Very kind.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. Right, so can I just ask members, are there any questions for Sergeant Gosling at this point at all?
Yes, please. Or is Sergeant Gosling going to come back again? No. We
yeah,
do all
definitely
this
like to.
together.
Definitely like to as well.
Okay then, Sergeant Gosling, would you like to address the committee again then, please, before Councillor Dunn asks a question?
Thank you. It's difficult to know where to pick it up because of where the stage that I was at. So to put it into the briefest terms I can, antisocial behaviour along our beaches, certainly during the most peak times, is a significant issue for Dorset Police. It's we experience obviously a marked increase in volume of people to the beach, huge opportunity for vendors along the beach, and understandably it's an opportunity which the applicant wishes to capitalise upon. I think I really need to come back to some of the issues that have been raised. I think the applicant has understood that it's generally young people that are on the beach and that are of the biggest concern to us. That I'd be interested to know how the applicant intends to not serve students. I'm pleased that they're not going to serve minors, but also, yeah, that kind of idea of just serving the regulars from the outside during the busy time. You know, we know that people flock from all over the country to come to Bournemouth, and I think again it really compounds my concern around how you can have that level of control out onto the beach for consumption. Councillor Farquhar raised a very, very valid point as far as the hours being applied for. You will note, Chair, that there is no suggestion anywhere that the outside bar would be restricted on hours at all. Currently, that's what is offered. However, you need to be aware that what is being applied for is to have the outside bar for the full duration of the permitted hours for the premises. So that is currently shown at midnight for 6 days of the week and 11:30 p.m. on a Sunday. So what is there now as far as a very limited provision could very well grow, because that is not what is being applied for. The limited provision is not what is being applied for. There could be a huge opportunity with that level of space outside the front of the premises for expansion of provision. Who's to say that there could be some music from inside and then an area for outside? Again, it essentially extends the floor plan of the premises. In relation to the CCTV, the outside area, and I've raised this before in previous hearings, the council CCTV cannot be relied upon. It can't be provided by the premises. It's a council-owned facility, and if the facility isn't operating for any reason, either through fault or through staffing issues, then it's not something that can be considered as relevant to the premises. We would expect that the premises is able to monitor the outside areas as best as it can, and certainly not be using the council council facilities. I think really to summarise it, we're talking about consumption, an unknown level of consumption out onto the beaches of Southbourne. I don't think we've had an answer that has entirely dealt with the concern raised by Councillor Farquhar in relation to proxy sales, because we know that when everyone's down on the beach, it'll be very difficult to monitor that. And I accept it's the same issue for supermarkets, but they do have very strict procedures in place to manage that, and they have those procedures internally to deal with that. So it's one for you committee members. I've given the concerns, and I don't think there's anything else to add. But if you've got any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Sergeant Gosling. Councillor Dunlop.
Thank you, Chairman. Sergeant Goss, am I right in saying that you helped put the conditions together when this first came forward and had to be adjourned on a technicality?
Yes, that's right. We again, much like the previous example, we try and work to achieve conditions wherever we possibly can, but then each application is judged on its merits, and I accept that we were making headway on the previous application, but we have had some concerns raised by the neighbourhood inspector around the level of antisocial behaviour that we experienced, in particular during the peak times. And I think to introduce this level, and again, I always look at it as what is the limit of that license. So it doesn't matter what it is that's being used, it's what the limit is of what could be used. And assuming that limit is used, because otherwise why would you apply for that? If the applicant was looking to heavily restrict it to 7 p.m, I would invite that they would have applied for 7 p.m. So it's not been restricted, and therefore that level of provision is of concern to the neighbourhood inspector.
And have you had any conversation since then with the applicant to make these suggestions? Because it does sound to me that some of your concerns could be mitigated with the putting limit on that outside licence. Have you had any of that interaction with the applicant?
Hello, it's Louise speaking here. Sorry, again, I'm rather unprepared, so I haven't got the dates to hand. But yes, I had a meeting with the applicant on the premises to explain my concerns. And at no times were any assurances given in terms of control of the area of sales or what part of the beach the alcohol provision could extend to. And likewise, there was no suggestion that the hours would be restricted to the hours that they're now discussing as being more realistic, possibly in terms of their alcohol provision.
Is this no discussion with the applicant, or from the police?
When I met with the applicant, there was no suggestion at all that the hours being applied for were anything other than those as part of the full variation, which you'll have in front of you.
I think the question I'm asking is that have the police conveyed to the applicant their concerns about these hours in the takeaway and what they would prefer and the reasons why, given that concerns have been raised in the interim from the local, did you say the local, one of the local officers, or?
No, okay, so the local neighbourhood inspector we invite to comment on every single application that we receive, because ultimately it's their officers who deal with any issues arising out of antisocial behaviours or concerns with licensed premises. And we have reacted to those concerns by the neighbourhood inspector, which we're duty bound to do. As a result, I met with the applicant and explained, yes, I certainly explained our concerns and the concerns that were being brought down to me. And at that time, I wasn't offered sufficient assurances that the licensing objectives would be upheld, or that there would be any reduction in hours applied for, or any additional control measures offered, hence the objection stood, and we're in this situation we are today in the hearing for the subcommittee to make the ultimate decision.
Okay, and can actually there probably is a question I want to ask. Have we had any incidents at all from these premises of any underage sales?
I haven't got access to a database of incidents from that part of the town. Again, with preparation for this hearing, it's something that I could have asked to access, but I'm afraid I can't provide you with anything.
Okay, that's fine. And Sergeant Gosling, is that the same for you? There is no evidence that there has been any sales to underage people around that area, either from sitting outside on the benches or people passing.
No, that's right. No, there certainly isn't, to the best of my knowledge. But like I said, I haven't really had the opportunity to prepare. What I would say, however, on that point is that because this is a new provision, it's very difficult to judge it based on what's already there. Because if you're selling alcohol for consumption on the premises, obviously you've got a much better level of control and oversight over who's consuming that alcohol. Our point is that by allowing that essentially free-for-all out onto the beach, it makes it very, very difficult to monitor that. And whilst we do have that, as the applicant has already said, with regards to supermarkets, there is that level. Yeah, it doesn't. You can't sort of, if you like, divert your liability away based on the fact that it's no different to a supermarket. So okay. We would expect that of the applicant in this case to have that level of control.
Okay. Mr. Mead has stated that he's believed that they're looking at his pricing, that he's probably pricing students and that out of the market. Does that not allay any of your fears that he has a price structure that's probably not aimed at the sort of people that are likely to be guilty of ASB on the beach?
Unfortunately, we see this being raised as a positive frequently. Quite commonly, we hear the term craft ales and premium spirits and lots of different things. That's very, very difficult to condition, impossible to enforce, and it's not something that really features on our radar because I could promise to sell something for £10. I'm not going to sell a great deal of it if I can get it elsewhere for £3. But it's not something that's in the conditions, and I only really react to what the provision allows for. And as it stands, if somebody was to, it may well be that Mr. Mead his business model is very fixed towards that model of the premium upper side of the market. However, if that doesn't work or some change in circumstances and the premises were to be sold, then the Licensing Act allows for the premises license to move with the property, and therefore the new license holder might take a different stance. So we are looking at worst case scenarios, I accept. However, it is reality, I'm afraid, and we've seen it time and time again. So I have to base it on the restrictions that the license has as applied for, and unfortunately it is wide open for a wide range of activity that causes us concern.
Okay, just one final question, if I may, and this is just really to just test my understanding of it. It's you don't have an issue with members of the public drinking on a public beach. You are just concerned about proxy sales and how it might get alcohol might get through to those that you really don't want to be drinking on the beach, who are likely to cause antisocial behaviour.
There is, I think you've summarised it there in your last few words. It is that antisocial behaviour, is that risk to what is otherwise a family environment. It's very much a valued environment, isn't it? I think by everybody, and there is a concern that might be impeded in some way.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. And
Thank you, Councillor Dunlop. Thank you, Sergeant Gosling. I've had a request to speak from the officer. Michelle, would you like to address the committee?
It's a bit. I was just trying to jump in after Councillor Farquhar, just to point out that in the on page 6 and on page 8 of the application form were the agreed conditions. It's a bit late now. I was just trying to point those out. And Mr. Mead might be able to offer more information, but I've had the owner of the premises, Peter, did contact me and have a discussion with regards to limiting hours in the external area. But whether he's had that conversation with Ian or the police, I'm not completely up to date, but maybe Mr. Mead could interject. I'm not sure. Okay, but it was just to point out where the agreed conditions were in the application. Thank you.
But can I just say that the committee does have the opportunity today to place conditions on the licence as well. So, Mr. Mead, do you want to address the committee?
Hello, Councillor. Yes, most definitely. A couple of points. I'll go back on what I said about not encouraging students. I didn't mean it as a term. What I meant was the type of people that would be looking for a cheap alcohol is not the sort of people we're looking at. And I want to reiterate the fact that we are a food-based restaurant, a bistro restaurant, and that is what we predominantly aim to give to our customers. The alcohol is an add-on. Not everybody drinks alcohol, as we know, and we're not there to encourage people to come down to the beachfront to drink alcohol. We could limit it at, say, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, no off sales, no more sales from the outside bar. Wouldn't be an issue at all. Peter, the owner, obviously sends his apologies, but he's got 3 young children, so he couldn't attend today. And he's willing to listen to what other what other issues there are, any other restrictions that are wanted. Don't think there's any other points I was going to try and bring up. The CCTV thing, again, he's more than happy to increase our CCTV if that was an issue with the police. So we have got facilities, put 3 extra cameras in. They could be aimed at the beachfront so that we wouldn't have to rely on the council ones, although the council ones are a backup if there was ever an issue. But in my 2.5 years there, I've not seen any issues at all with regards to our building. But again, like I say, Peter would be more than happy to increase the CCTV if the police felt that would be more beneficial.
Thank you, Mr. Meads. Right, I do apologise for getting out of sync. Councillor Farquhar, did you have any questions at all for Sergeant Gosling?
No, Sergeant Gosling and Louise have been very clear on the police's concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. So in which case then we come to the point of summing up and obviously who goes first, who goes last. Sergeant Gosling, is there anything else you wish to address the committee with?
No, I don't think so, Chair. No, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Meads, is there anything that you've forgotten or would like to address the committee with before I bring the meeting to a close?
I don't think so, really, other than the fact that obviously this whole application was put forward last year and was agreed by all parties to have no issues whatsoever. When the temporary licence went through the end of August, it was agreed by all parties that there would be no issues at all. I think we found it a little bit confusing of what's changed over the winter period to have these issues added on. I think that's the only confusion we found, was the fact that it was all agreed last year before the summer, yet it's not been granted this year, and we've only had the winter period in between. So that's, I think, the only issue we really had, really.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Meads. Right, members, I will now conclude the hearing. At the end of this meeting, the subcommittee will adjourn in private with the legal advisor and the clerk to deliberate. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be provided within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held in accordance with the regulations. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. Can I call on the legal advisor, Linda, please, to just explain the situation?
Yes, it's Linda Cole, the legal advisor. As the chair's already said, the committee will now retire to consider their decision, and formal notification of that decision will be sent within the 5 days. There will be an opportunity for any party to appeal the decision that the committee come to. That appeal would go to Dorset Magistrates Court and should be made within 21 days of formal notification of the decision.
Thank you, Linda. I will now adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes, whereby the subcommittee will reconvene. Thank you everyone for your attendance this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.